All right, guys, welcome to episode 2, part 2. Today we're going to be talking about the baseball diamond. So let's jump right in. We're going to talk about episode 2, part 2, the diamond. This is the second shape that I've taught. And just like the first one, I want you to know this backwards, forwards, memorized. Think about the first time that you ever started holding a map in your hand, a GPS in your hand. Think about the first time you got GPS on a phone, or GPS maybe in your car, and it was amazing. Now, no matter where I am, I know where I am. That's what this is like for me. Every time I'm in a small group, I always know where I'm at in a small group, because this is a map to every small group discussion I've had in the last 20 years. So that's what we're going to talk about today. A map to your group discussion. And what I want you to do is get yourself a piece of paper here, and we're just going to draw a diamond, not like a every kiss begins with K type of diamond, but like a baseball diamond. Or if you are of a certain persuasion, you might say a softball diamond, or even a kickball diamond. All of those would be acceptable. I know my diamond is kind of lopsided. Sorry about that, but we'll live. So go ahead and draw the bases on there, because this is that kind of diamond. All right, here we go. So let's think about this. What would a home run look like in your small group? You think, well, there's a lot of different answers we could do, and if you were right here in front of me, we might, bicker back and forth. But I'm just going to tell you, a home run for your group is this. I want you to experience community as a group. I want you to experience biblical community, Christ-centered community, but community. And so, a few decades ago, we wouldn't have used the word community, because that was, not yet invented yet. Back then, the word was fellowship. Oh, yes, we're going to experience true fellowship. Maybe we'll have ourselves a fellowship hall. But the Greek word here is koinonia, which means basically togetherness or one anotherness. And so there's a bunch of times, some other time, we'll do a study of koinonia in the New Testament and look at all the times that it says that, we're supposed to do this to one another, and we're all together in this. One another's all alone, but that all the apostles were together in one accord, whatever that is. So they all had community, they had fellowship together, they had koinonia. So there are 3 steps that we're going to go through every single week. Every single week we're going to do this, and one of them we've already talked about. We talked about this in the last part of this episode, and it's storytelling and affirmation. Storytelling and affirmation. I'm not going to explain that right now. We already covered it, I think, in depth. But here's the deal. Every week, every conversation has to start with storytelling and affirmation. If you're thinking about icebreakers, don't think just icebreaker. Think storytelling and affirmation. That's where we start every single week. Every time we get together, it's all about storytelling and affirmation. The next thing we do is, after we have done our storytelling and affirmation, then we can get into new info from the Bible. And you say, well, Micah, we're not really doing a Bible study right now. We're reading this book by this good Christian author. Hey, Micah, we're not really doing a Bible study right now. We're actually just like discussing the weekend sermon or whatever. Great. I'm for all those things. But guess what? The sermon stuff's coming from the Bible. The book that you're reading is drawing from the Bible, or else I probably wouldn't recommend that you read it in your small group. So you're doing some sort of biblical content in the group. But here's the thing. It doesn't come first. It comes second. First base is storytelling and affirmation. The very first time I ever led a small group on my own material was it was a Bible study for teenagers. I was a teenager. It was like in 10th grade or something. And it was on the book of 1 Corinthians. And so every week we would get together, and I just felt like I had the most unspiritual group of people in the history of the world, which in retrospect, I mean, they're teenagers studying the book of 1 Corinthians together. They have to be, pretty spiritual right there. But I could not get a conversation out of them to save my life. And so we would start out, okay, this is good. And I'd say, okay, everybody's here. All right, can you pray? Okay, we praise. And we'd start out, okay, 1 Corinthians. All right, we'd start talking. And we'd start, okay, Bill, why don't you read? So Bill reads a little bit, and okay, it's okay, stop right there, Bill. All right, does anybody think about, what do you guys think about that? And I didn't have good questions. We'll get into that later. But people just look at me. And say, well, the answer is da-da-da-da-da. And, okay, Bill, keep reading. And so we'd go through, and we'd be 45 minutes in before I could get anybody to talk. And I finally realized that I was not warming them up. It wasn't their fault, it was mine. That I was putting the new info from the Bible up front because I thought, well, this is the most important thing. We can do the social stuff later. But the reality is, until they've got a chance to get their storytelling and affirmation for all the reasons we talked about in that other episode, or that part 1 of episode 2, then they're not ready. So then part 3 is going to be goal setting. I'm just going to right over the line there. Don't tell anybody. Goal setting. You might use the word application, but I prefer goal setting, and here's why. It's roughly the same idea. If you're in a small group, it's James says, don't be like that guy who reads it and then doesn't put it into practice. You're like somebody who forgets what you look like after looking in the mirror. Don't be that guy. That's James in James 1. But application is a good word, but goal setting is better. Goal setting is what we actually want. We want you to set goals because goals are concrete. And so let's say we studied patience. Oh, okay, one of the things we learned today is patience. And you as a small group leader say, oh, today we're all going to try and be patient. Or this week we're all going to try and be patient. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, we want to be patient because that's what the Bible says. Okay. The problem is that's not actually rooted in any kind of reality. There's not any concrete thing that they're thinking, I will be patient in this situation. And so after they blow it and are impatient with somebody, then they'll go, oh, maybe that's where I should have done the patience thing that we talked about. If you say, hey, I'm going to be patient this week with my little brother, with my coworker, with my employee, with my employer, I'm going to have this hard conversation with my roommate, and we do that, then the brain has something to attach all of that stuff that we just got out of the Bible. The brain can attach it to that. So I want to be real clear about this. If we don't do that goal setting and application piece, we have wasted our time. It's not worth it. It's not worth having the group just to study the Word if it doesn't actually impact who we are. That's strong words, but that's basically what the Bible says. So I've got so many examples of groups that have studied things and studied them really well, and I think, oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you have that Bible knowledge. Now, how does that actually apply to your life? And they say, well, we don't really worry about that. Well, guess what? You're wasting your time. Now, there's a very important theological movie that was made several years ago when I was, it's like mid-90s. It's called Angels in the Outfield, all right? And it's about this kid who wants to have a family, and so he prays that the Angels, the California baseball team, Angels will win the pennant, and so God starts rigging baseball games, basically. And that's a beautiful movie, but there's this great part where the catcher, the big burly catcher, he hits a long infield almost home run, and he's chugging around the bases, right? And so he tags first base, which for us, first base is, that's right, storytelling and affirmation, good. He tags first base, and he chugs along, and he tags second base, boom, and he tags third base, boom, and he's coming around third base, and he trips, all right? And he's like 30 feet out. There's no way. He trips 30 feet out. The ball's coming back into the infield, and he's running, he trips, and he hits the deck, and he slides like 30 feet into home plate. And this is my best picture of what happens in a small group. See, it's our job to tag the bases, all right? You can't make community happen, but it's our job to tag the bases. And so I want you in your group every week to start out with storytelling and affirmation. I want you to get some sort of a new info from the Bible, and I want you to do some sort of goal setting and application based on that new information. But the reality is, if you tag the bases, I have found, not just more often than not, overwhelmingly, this is the case, that if you tag the bases, the power of God will show up and do what you could not do for yourself. God will grab you by the scruff of your neck and the seat of your pants and drag you all the way back, all the way back into home plate. And so this is the baseball diamond. I think you can do this. And so I want you to do this a lot of times, memorize it, be able to do it. Because you should be in your group thinking, okay, first base, second base, third base. If you do this, I tell you what, guys, it's like having a great map. If you follow the map, you can't mess up. So that's it for me. I'll see you guys in a bit.